All right, so get it. Meta just dropped Llama 3.
Everyone is freaking out.
Yeah, the AI world is going bonkers.
Yeah.
It's huge. We're talking like next level language model here.
Yeah.
The kind that could seriously shake things up.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
So strap in, because we're about to deep dive into exactly what makes Llama 3 so special.
Well, you're hearing a lot of buzz about foundation models, right? And that's what we're talking about with Llama 3.
Okay.
Think of it like the base of a whole bunch of AI systems you use every single day, almost like a Swiss Army knife for AI.
Okay, I love that analogy. But how do you actually build a Swiss Army knife of AI?
It's a two-step process. First, imagine like feeding a massive amount of text data to an AI. That's the pre-training phase, basically teaching it how language works and letting it absorb a ton of knowledge. Then you have fine-tuning, that's training it on specific tasks to make it really good at, I don't know, say, writing different kinds of creative content or even coding.
So it's like giving it a general education and then sending it off to like specialize in something.
You got it. And Llama 3. Well, Meta took both of those steps to a whole new level.
Yeah, for starters, Llama 3 was trained on 15 trillion pieces of text.
It's a lot.
It's almost impossible to wrap your head around, right?
Yeah.
That's more than 8 times the data they use for Llama 2. And don't even get me started on the computing power involved.
3.8 times 10^1025 FLOPs.
Whoa, hold on. I'm pretty sure you just broke my brain. What does that even mean in, normal human terms?
Basically, imagine nearly 50 times more computing power than what they used to train the biggest Llama 2 model.
Okay, now that's some serious firepower.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. They actually went with a simpler design for the model this time around. You'd think they'd need something super complicated for all that, right?
That's the surprising part. They prioritized stability and scalability. Because when you're dealing with this much data and computing power, you need a model that can handle it without going off the rails. It's like, building a skyscraper. You need a rock-solid foundation to support all those floors.
So let's talk about the foundation. Where did all this data come from, and how did they make sure it was actually, good data to learn from?
Most of it came from the web.
Okay.
But Meta took data curation very seriously. They removed anything unsafe, any personal information. Think of it like scrubbing away all the stuff you wouldn't want an AI to learn from. They even were very careful about how they handled code and math formulas, because you don't want the AI to get tripped up on the technical stuff.
Wait, they even removed, markdown formatting from the data? That seems so specific. Why even bother?
It sounds strange, I know, but it turns out Markdown was actually messing with the model's performance when they were training it.
Wow.
On web data, primarily training on web data, it just goes to show even the smallest details can have a big impact on how these things learn.
That is wild. Okay, so we've got massive data, massive computing power. Remind me again how those scaling laws played into all of this.
Remember how I said it was like a recipe? Well, Meta used these scaling laws to figure out the perfect mix of data and computing power needed to reach a specific level of performance.
Okay.
It's like having a crystal ball for AI development.
So no more blindly throwing resources at the problem and hoping for the best.
Exactly. They could basically predict how well Llama 3 would perform based on the resources they put in, even before the training started. Which is really important when you're dealing with something as massive and complex as Llama 3.
Now, I can't even imagine the physical infrastructure behind all of this. How many computers are we even talking about here?
Hold on to your hat. They used a network of 24,000 GPUs all linked together.
24,000. Okay, you officially lost me.
It's like creating a supercomputer dedicated to just this one task. They're all connected through what's called a ROSI-based AI cluster. Imagine a massive interconnected web of computing power, all working together to train this one model.
Okay.
And to make it all work, they used a technique called 4D parallelism.
4D, like something out of Interstellar. Okay, I'm definitely going to need you to break that down a little further.
Don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Basically, it's a way to break down the training workload and distribute it across those thousands of GPUs.
Okay.
That way, they can make the training process way faster and more efficient. Think of it like having, I don't know, thousands of chefs working together to cook a single, incredibly complex dish.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. But let's move on from the tech specs for a moment. We talked about how it's built, but what can Llama 3 actually do? Tell me it can make me a sandwich.
Well, I can't promise you a sandwich, but it can do things that are almost as cool. And that's what we'll dig into next.
So we left off talking about 4D parallelism, and honestly, my head is still spinning a little from those 24,000 GPUs.
Yeah.
But we also teased that Llama 3 isn't just some, like, tech showpiece. It can actually do things.
Right.
Lots of things, apparently.
It's true. And this is where things get really interesting, I think, for people. What Meta has done with Llama 3 is create an AI that doesn't just predict text.
Okay.
It follows instructions, it solves problems, and gets creative with language, all in response to what you tell it to do.
Hold on, back up a bit. So you're saying it's not just about spitting out the next word in a sentence anymore?
Exactly. This is about taking all that knowledge and using it to actually do something useful based on what the user wants. And this is thanks to some really sophisticated techniques they used after the initial training, like something called direct preference optimization, or a DPO.
Okay, I'm going to need you to unpack that one for me. DPO. It sounds a little intense.
It's really not as complicated as it sounds. Think of it like this. Imagine teaching a dog a new trick with treats.
Right.
When the dog does what you want, it gets a treat, right?
Right.
So it learns to do things based on that positive feedback, the reward. DPO does something similar with the AI. It learns what you prefer, what you want it to do based on the feedback it gets.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. So it's like they're training the AI to understand our preferences, not just our language. That's pretty mind-blowing. But let's talk about something even more mind-blowing. Llama 3's coding skills.
Oh.
They've basically built an AI that can code, haven't they?
It's true, and this is one of the things I think people are most excited about. And to get there, Meta didn't just, throw a bunch of code at Llama 3 and hope for the best.
Right.
They developed a specialized model specifically for coding and used some really clever techniques to train it.
Like what? Give me the highlights.
Well, one of the coolest things they did was incorporate something called execution feedback.
Okay.
Basically, they trained Llama 3 to learn from its own coding mistakes.
So if it writes a piece of code that doesn't work, it actually learns from that and gets better.
Exactly. It's like having a built-in debugging buddy that helps it understand why the code isn't working and how to fix it.
That's amazing. What else?
They also use something called programming language translation. They essentially taught Llama 3 to translate code between different programming languages.
Okay, no, that sounds complicated. Why bother?
Because by learning to translate between languages, it gains a much deeper understanding of the underlying coding concepts and syntax. It's kind of like if you speak 3 or 4 languages fluently, you probably have a better grasp on the nuances of language in general, right?
That's a really good point. So they've got this AI that's learning to code, learning from its mistakes, becoming multilingual. What else could they possibly throw at it?
Well, they didn't stop there. They also started experimenting with automated code review, which is fascinating.
Hold on, automated code review. Like an AI telling another AI that its code needs work.
It's pretty wild, right? They're essentially training Llama 3 to look at its own code and analyze it for potential improvements, just like, a senior developer would do with a junior developer's code.
So it's learning to be a better coder and a better code reviewer. Talk about a multi-talented AI.
It really is remarkable. And this is all on top of the fact that Llama 3 can use external tools like search engines, calculators to solve complex problems.
Right.
It's something they're calling multi-step tool use.
Okay, now that's just showing off. But seriously, walk me through that. How does that even work?
Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to plan a trip, right?
Okay.
You might use a search engine to find flights, then another tool to compare prices, and then finally a booking platform to actually book the flights.
Right.
Llama 3 can do all of that, but within the AI itself,
So it's like having a personal travel agent that lives inside your computer. That is seriously impressive.
it is, and it goes way beyond travel planning. You could use it for managing your calendar, controlling smart home devices, really anything that requires interacting with other systems.
That is a seriously impressive bag of tricks. But with all this power comes some pretty big questions, right? Namely, how do we make sure it's used for good and doesn't turn into some, sci-fi horror story?
You're right to ask that AI safety is paramount, and that's what we'll delve into next.
All right, so we've established that Llama 3 can basically do my taxes and plan my next vacation, all while writing better code than I ever could. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, keeping this insanely powerful AI, under control.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question with any AI this advanced, isn't it? And Meta knows it. One of the things they're really emphasizing is how they're tackling the whole issue of AI hallucinations.
For those of us who haven't been deep in the AI weeds, what does that even mean?
You know how sometimes AI can just, make stuff up,
Okay.
spit out facts that sound totally plausible but are completely wrong. That's what we mean by hallucinations.
Okay, yeah, that's a little concerning given how much Llama 3 seems to know.
It's a big focus, and Meta's throwing everything they've got at it, starting with something they're calling knowledge probes.
Okay, lay it on me. What are knowledge probes?
Imagine giving Llama 3 a pop quiz on a very specific topic to see where its knowledge might be a little shaky. That's essentially what a knowledge probe does. They help Meta pinpoint the areas where Llama 3 might need some extra training to avoid making stuff up.
So it's not just about catching the AI in a lie, it's about using those moments to actually make it smarter and more reliable.
Exactly. But they didn't stop there. They're also building up what they call labeled factuality data. Basically, it's a massive collection of statements that have been specifically labeled as either true or false.
So they're basically force-feeding Llama 3 a whole bunch of truth serum to help it tell fact from fiction.
That's one way to put it. All of this is designed to help Llama 3 develop something that's crucial for any AI that's going to interact with the real world. A strong sense of what's true and what's not.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But even with all that, you still need some kind of safety net, right? Like, what happens if Llama 3 still tries to go rogue?
You're right, and that's where Llama Guard comes in.
Okay.
Think of it as a built-in security system that's constantly monitoring everything Llama 3 does.
So even if it tries to do something it shouldn't, Llama Guard is there to step in and say, nope, not today.
Exactly. It uses a bunch of different techniques, some based on hard and fast rules, others that are powered by machine learning. But the goal is the same: to filter out any outputs that could potentially be harmful or go against those safety guidelines.
So it's like having a super vigilant bodyguard for the AI, always making sure it stays in line. Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. But even with all these safeguards in place, AI like this still makes a lot of people nervous.
And for good reason, right? It's powerful technology. This is exactly why Meta making Llama 3 open source is such a big deal.
Because it's not just Meta shouldering the responsibility of making sure it's used safely.
Exactly. They're basically saying, we're not going to do this alone. We want the entire AI community involved in making sure this technology is used responsibly.
It's like they're saying, hey world, we made this crazy powerful AI, now let's work together to make sure it doesn't accidentally take over the world.
Well, maybe not in those exact words, but you get the idea. And honestly, that's a really powerful statement. It shows that they understand the weight of what they've created and that they're committed to getting it right.
Okay, so final thoughts. Paint me a picture of what the future looks like with Llama 3 in it. Are we all about to be replaced by AI overlords?
Let's hope not. Look, Llama 3 is a huge leap forward. It's not just a language model. It's a glimpse into what true artificial general intelligence AGI could look like.
You're talking about AI that can actually think for itself, learn, and adapt like we do.
Exactly. And while we're not quite there yet, Llama 3 has some of those building blocks, and the potential benefits are huge. Imagine AI helping us solve climate change, cure diseases, even just make our daily lives easier and more fulfilling.
It's like that saying, with great power.
Comes great responsibility, right? We can't just be swept up in the excitement of the tech. We need to be mindful of the potential risks and ethical considerations every step of the way.
And that's on all of us, not just the brilliant minds at Meta who built it.
You got it. The future of AI isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create through the choices we make today.
So we've got our work cut out for us. But hey, at least we have something as cool as Llama 3 to help us along the way. This has been an incredible deep dive. Where can our listeners go if they want to, well, dive even deeper on their own?
Meta has been very transparent with their research. They've released a bunch of information about Llama 3, including the research paper.
Great.
You can find links to all that on our show notes, but a simple web search should get you there too.
Perfect. And to our listeners, keep those questions coming. The world of AI is changing fast, and we're here to help you make sense of it all. Until next time.